Guns are here. The big guns are here. But we'll give it about 3 or 4 more minutes. Make sure you get a water if you need one, or snackies and all of that good stuff. And then we'll talk a little bit about this fun topic that everybody is so anxious to hear about. We can get that rolling. Hi, how are you? Good.
Put that rock garden back up again. I'm getting these ideas. I might just do that.
No, there's much better. There's much better. Oh, sugars. Maybe. Really? You really like that?
That reminds me of San Diego, California.
Exactly. That's a 1990 front yard landscape of xeriscape. That's what I saw. When I saw that, I was like, oh, wow.
How depressing.
It's so sad. Personally, my opinion, everybody has one. So, my opinion, everybody has one. I just don't think it's very flourishing for pollinators and animals and wildlife and stuff.
I'm sorry.
But
Don't worry about it.
not doing it because we're just taking a total of who's here.
Got it.
Travis doesn't need all that other good stuff that goes on. So, got one more. Exactly. Well, and what people don't realize, even though it has white rock, it's still a lot hotter. And it makes your house a lot hotter outside, and it makes everything a lot hotter. And so, I don't know how those poor little plants even survive with the heat. But we'll just get that going. So yeah, it's a great way to live if you want to live that way. Who am I? What do I do? Well, I try, because I like to take notes, and I don't always bring all my note stuff. How are you, Clayton?
I'm doing great.
How's the growing business?
I don't know.
We're not growing right now?
Commission for a week or two. Now we're doing great.
I think of you often. Matter of fact, I was just telling Belle I need to get with Kathy because I have a bunch of stuff that I'd like to propagate for fall sale.
Now's the time.
Yeah,
We just had a meeting yesterday.
Oh, good. I got to get with her to find out when she can come over and help me kind of propagate some of that stuff. I have some beautiful passion flowers that are gorgeous, and coral and honeysuckle, and yeah.
We're trying to add a lot more of that kind of thing.
Yeah, you can come to my backyard and do that. I'd love for somebody to. Not right now. It's a hot mess. I have neglected it so much. It's not even. I go out there and I'm just like, I have so much work to do. It's not even funny. It is. It's a hot mess. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. You ready for me? Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about gardening around HOAs today. And the thing that I want you to know first and foremost, I am not an attorney. I am not in the legal world. I have been on my HOA board for the last year as the vice president. So I'm hoping to give you a little bit of inclination of what HOA boards do and don't do and can do and won't do. I'm hoping to give you a little bit of perspective on what to come to the table with the HOAs, because they are not the mean creatures that we like to believe them to be. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. As most of you know, I'm Karen Burkich. I am a master gardener. I'm also part of the NEPSOT chapter in New Braunfels. NPSOT stands for Native Plants of Texas, and so I do talk a lot about native plants because they are the way and the movement to the future of how we get around this HOA business. So with that, if you need to get a hold of me, you've got my email, scream out, don't hesitate. I am always around. I may not answer right away, but it will be within 24 hours. So a couple of housekeeping reminders as well. Please turn your phones on silent. Jot down any notes or questions that you may have. I'll do my best to answer them. If I don't have the answer, I will be glad to get back with you. Please, if you haven't already, put your email onto the sign-on sheet. I like to send out a follow-up afterwards just to kind of touch base with people if they have any questions, okay? And then, of course, with any of my classes, it's take what you want, leave the rest. I realize that everybody comes to the table with a different aspect and a different thought process. And so if you have a better way of doing things, I'm always anxious to hear. And then take away what you can from this. And hopefully this will help in your venture of dealing with HOAs. So I want you all to just take a minute. We're going to kind of go into a zen here. And we're going to go ahead and close our eyes. And I want you to imagine the most beautiful garden you could have in your front yard and in your backyard. And whether that looks like the beautiful rock garden that we saw at the beginning, or if it looks like, all kinds of beautiful flowers that will give you flowers from March until the first frost. And I want you to kind of keep that in mind as we go through this, because that garden can be yours if you want to take the time to do it correctly. All right. Deep breath. All right, let it go, let it go. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about where the HOAs come into play. But first we need to talk about this beautiful aspect of the lawn. The lawn in the 1700s was actually taken back by a lot of the prestigial groups, and they wanted to put in something that didn't produce anything to show their prestige. So a lot of these people in the 1700s came over from England, and they went ahead and put in grass. And the grass is simply there to be green. It is not for pollinators. It doesn't produce any food. It doesn't give anything back to society, whether it is plants, people, or pets, okay? So keep that in mind as we go through this, because how many of you live in an HOA right now? Okay. How many of you think the most important thing is to have a most beautiful trimmed lawn that is very nice and short and kind of golf-courtish? Okay. So, I know, but it's how we've been raised, right? It's been raised that if we drive by somebody's lawn that maybe is brown because we can't water it as often, all of a sudden that's an ugly yard. Or if it's a beautiful green, it's got to be the right green. It can't be the chartreuse green. It can't be the real deep forest green. It's got to be that perfect green. But keep in mind, that yard is not doing anything to help any of the pollinators. It's not doing anything to provide any food for you to eat, right? So in the 1700s, that's why they did it, because they wanted to establish their wealth. They wanted to establish who they were and how they had this big spread of lawn that was perfectly manicured, and how many servants they had to do it, because they did not have lawnmowers then, right? So somebody's out there with scissors cutting the lawn. It's not producing any food for the people that live in the house. 1800s come along, and it shows more of your estate and how that all works out. So then we come to the 1900s. And in 1900s, the wonderful suburban was born. After World War II, many of the Americans developed these suburban developments, much like the neighborhoods that we know today. Everybody got to own their own home. And as they owned their own home, it became prestige to have a perfect lawn to show that they were good caretakers of the land. And then the lawnmower was born. Okay? So keep in mind, the lawnmower has not been around but 100 years. Kind of interesting if you think about it, right? Because before that, anytime you had any property, you were producing a garden so that you had food for your table. Okay? So kind of keep these in mind. And then 1970s, now we're going back a little bit. Now there's a concern for all the pesticides that we use. Now there's a concern for not enough water to water that beautiful lawn in order to keep it the way it needs to be. So from the 70s until now, we're going back kind of in the past, where we're sitting there going, oh, we want to produce a garden. We want to produce things that are good for the environment. We don't want to take away all the water that we have to water this piece of property. So as we go through, this is going to become very valuable in your HOA fight. And I use fight with quotes, okay? Because if you go to the table with a fight, guess what? You're going to get one. All right? So we're going to talk a little bit about how to avoid that.
Is that on the paper? I didn't see it.
No, that last portion was not. I added that this morning. So it happened to me. I, as a vice president of the HOA, got a notification because I had decided that my health strip was not going to be just a piece of ugly property. So I went ahead and I dug up all that darn grass in that little health strip. And if you don't know what a health strip is, it's that little piece of property that's between your sidewalk and the street. That is actually owned by the city, but it's actually your responsibility to keep nice. Okay?
Is that written somewhere?
Uh-huh.
It is?
Mm-hmm. It's in your original documentation in your title as you go into signing your documents.
Gotcha.
But they never give it to you.
But yeah, it's not yours, but it is yours. Yes, sir.
What happens if we don't have any sidewalks?
Well, then you don't have a health strip.
And so you're not responsible.
So you're not responsible.
If there are-
Well, and part of that health strip, just so you know, is that centerpiece of where the water comes from the street to your house. So there's a lot of pipage and different things that go into that health strip. So you have to pay attention to where you're digging there also, which comes down to 811, and you call the city and they come out and they mark it all up for you and all that good
Is
stuff.
that official term, health strip?
Yeah, well, in NIPSOT world, yes. So I got this notification because the little lady that comes around twice a month to evaluate our properties for their value said that this was no longer beautiful, even though I have my lawn mowed twice a month. And I keep up the front yard, and if it's too long, I'll get out there with my little push mower and do whatever I need to do. But because my health strip was just dirt and I was solarizing it to get rid of all of the grass so that I could plant things that would actually be productive and grow, she decided that she needed to send me a notification. So I stepped out of my vice president role, stepped into the home ownership role, and wrote them this beautiful, lovely letter. And so I'll just kind of brief over it. Basically, I told them that she really needs to know what she's doing before she starts going ahead and pointing fingers and not knowing what I'm doing to the land. And so we went through all of this. I went ahead and looked up the city ordinance for New Braunfels of what I'm doing wrong or if I was doing anything wrong. I also went into finding the ordinance within the state of what and how I can do my yard, and had the board, the other two people, have to go ahead and write off my notification. Just because I wasn't done in the timely fashion that she wanted, and I wasn't going to use pesticides to remove any of that information or to kill the dirt that I had there, it was not my responsibility for her to know this, but now it is, because I'm letting you know that this is what we did. So, needless to say, my board, God bless them, they went ahead and okayed the fact that I was going to move forward with my health strip. So I now have, I have lantana and all natives planted in my health strip, which is kind of fun. So the theme for the day on that note is to be strategic, come to the table with an answer rather than just anger and frustration. Because how dare they tell me what to do with my land that I'm paying on every single month. Know your DCCNRs and know your architectural committee. I can't tell you how important that is. That is the most wonderful document that you will never read. You sign it at signing, but you don't read it. Look through it, because it gives you all the answers that you need to go fight this. And you also need to know what their responsibilities are. The architectural committee can tell you what you can and cannot put in your front yard, but if it's not visible in the backyard, they can't. All right. So, most of HOAs, if we know, we think that the HOAs are out there, and this isn't to slap anybody on the wrist, they're out there with this, and they're going, how tall is the grass, right? Can I have that there? What's beautiful? What's not beautiful? How many times have you gone to a art gallery and you look at a picture on the wall and you go, wow, that's amazing. That Monet is incredible. And then your partner in crime that went to the art museum with you goes, that's a hot mess. What in the world? So beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? So HOAs, they can still regulate the appearance and the maintenance. It's very generic. Appearance and maintenance. Weed control. What does that mean in the native plant world? Okay. Dead or dying plants. If you have a dead tree, they can make you replace it with a live tree. All right. Mulching, edging, and borders. Approval of major landscape changes. All these things, think about it, guys, they're very generic. Approval of, height restrictions near sidewalks and streets, maintenance of irrigation systems, if they're required by the community. Now, some do not require you put sprinkler systems in. Okay, so it depends on your DCCNR. Make sure that you read them to know what they're responsible for. What Texas HOAs generally cannot require. What's the key word in there? Cannot, okay? So Texas law provides significant protection for homeowners who want water-wise landscapes. Native plant landscapes. Keep it in mind. HOAs cannot force you to maintain a traditional turf grass lawn. That lawn that they put in when you moved in, you don't have to maintain it. You can water it once a week, but they can't make you water it. And I'm not telling you to fight them, I'm just telling you what they cannot do. They can't prohibit your drought-tolerant landscape. They cannot prohibit xeriscaping. They can't prohibit the use of native plants. They can require a minimum percentage of turf grass coverage. Okay? A minimum percentage. You can have enough for your dog to go potty on if you want. And then find you solely replacing the grass which will be approved by water street. Okay. So what that last line means is if I go and I start working my yard and moving the grass, there's not a whole lot they can do as long as I still have it in a controlled area. Okay? So keep that in mind. So Texas HOA rules, that overrides your DCC and ours. So with the drought, even though we've gotten a lot of rain recently, with the drought, they cannot make you water your lawn to make it that pretty green. If you only want to water once a week, you're at least doing your part. So let's break it down. Knowing your rights. Know your HOA rules. I'm gonna say this over and over and over again today. Design intentionally. What does that mean? Communicate early. Work with, not against. Replace your lawn gradually, and then you create yourself more life and more time because you're not out there mowing every Saturday afternoon. So let's talk a little bit about designing intentionally. Okay, these are the challenges that we have here. Rising water costs, of course, right? Drought concerns. Some of you may or may not be aware of pollinating decline. Those are important. Excessive lawn maintenance, and then HOA expectations. So by having these challenges, we now want to increase our opportunities. Our opportunities of less mowing, less watering, which in turn saves you money, right? Both sides of that. And then more wildlife in your landscape. It's amazing when you put in a native landscape, all of a sudden you hear birds that you never heard before because they're coming to eat the caterpillars that are eating your native plants, which is kind of fun. More beauty, again, eye of the beholder, right? And then more time to actually enjoy your yard and be out there and see the beauty that's in nature. I'm just trying to increase your life. That's all I'm trying to do. So a few of the common myths about the HOA. The HOA wants and requires turf grass everywhere. You would think that. And I will tell you, as a former board member, you would think that. They want everybody's grass to be exactly how they want it to be. There is no free thinking in the front yard. Everybody's grass has to be a certain length, and it has to be cut at least once every other week. And there aren't no dandelions growing in that yard. You better have all the kinds of pesticides and herbicides that are going to kill everything that's going to be beneficial to your yard. Okay? So, and with that in mind, remember, those herbicides, they soak into the soil, which soaks into the water, which soaks into our systems. So just pay attention to those things. Native plants can look messy. That's all in how you look at it, right? That Monet picture, Rebecca had that. Pollinator gardens violate HOA rules? Nah. HOAs can override state law. Absolutely not. It's worth the fight. It really is worth the fight. And then the reality is most successful HOAs, friendly native landscapes exist across Texas. We have more places that are going to the native landscaping than you can imagine. And they're just absolutely beautiful. As you drive down 46 and you see all the yellow flowers out there, just take a minute, because that's can be yours. So, Texas Property Code. Yay! This is not fun to learn all about this wonderful thing, but, and again, it is very, very vague for a reason. Texas Property Code, it protects homeowners' rights to install native plants, drought-resistant plants, xeriscaping, and overwater conservation. Very important. As we know, this last summer, we were watering, what, once a week? And it was barely keeping anything alive, unless you had native plants in your landscape, which they actually survive the best. If you look, again, drive down 46, how many sprinkler systems are there? None, right? In California, they actually have sprinkler systems on the side of the freeway because they don't get enough rain. We have the native plants that will go ahead and bypass any of that, and they will search for the water themselves and dig deep with their root base. So pay attention to Texas law because it overrides your DCCNRs. Now they will tell you and they will fight you for it, but you need to make sure that you understand that Texas law allows us to plant the xeriscaping. Now, xeriscaping does not necessarily mean you have to put rocks in your front yard. You do not have to do that. You can actually xeriscape without the rocks. You can use mulch. You can use granite. You can use other things in your yard to provide that same dexterity. The rocks in the front yard, as I was telling some people before, is that when you put those rocks in, remember that they save the heat. So that 105 that you're worried about, and it increases the heat of your house, those rocks are intensifying it. So you want things that are going to hold the moisture in, such as mulch, that is going to give you the same benefits of not having every landscaping grass or turf that's out there. Because really, the turf is the only thing it's doing is keeping the dust down from coming into your house. And you can do that same thing with the mulch, because the mulch will keep and hold on to the water. So this little bit here, this is the legislature portion. So just kind of read through that. Also, again, it is very vague. It primarily deals with water usage. We do not have, at this time, a whole lot of legislation on what can be done against HOA DCCNRs. But this is vague enough that it can help you battle it. Okay? So more. So again, Texas code protects you from, or protects you to plant native plants, to use your xeriscaping, to use water conservation. They really want you to save the money not watering. We don't have enough water, no matter how many people tell you that they don't know what the aquifer actually holds. We do not have enough water to participate with all of the people that we're allowing into our state. And then drought tolerant landscaping. HOA. The HOA will tell you that you need to make sure that you're watering every single week, at least once. It's not the case. You water what you can afford. Keep in mind that if you don't water it, you will be replacing it with something else. Or you will be replacing it with more turf. So it's going to cost you, you got to weigh your cost options on that. I have to apologize for a second, because my bug thing last month was a lot more fun. I know that this is not fun. And I'm not making it rhyme like I did last month. So this is a heavy subject for me. It's important that you understand that you don't have to live in a world that doesn't have green during the summer. You can have the most beautiful yard in the block and people to sit there and go, wow, how did she make that happen? I know she's not watering but once every other week. What's that going about? So this is a real passion for me. But the HOA will battle you on that. So make sure you're ready to go and fight the good fight. So once a week watering, irrigation restriction, brown lawns during the drought time. My HOA, when I was closing for my house, stopped half of the yards going in and put in rock instead. And now we're complaining about having the rock 3 years later. Okay? But they did that so that they can close on the property and have something in the yard. And even though the HOA did that, or the developer and the builder got that okay and did that, it's now become a horrible, horrible menace in our yards because the rocks are all over the street and there's weeds in the rocks and nobody's maintaining the rocks. It's a big hot mess. So keep in mind, you can go to the architectural committee in your HOA and combat that, but you have to maintain it with thought. Go. All right. This is the most important thing that you can ever do, and it's the horriblest reading that you'll ever do, is to read your DCCNRs. Sit down and find out what those actually say. You came into that development and you actually purchased your house knowing you were getting into an HOA. You knew that you had to pay a certain amount of money annually to be part of the HOA. But what was the HOA doing? Why are they there? Why? Because we can't talk to our neighbors anymore and tell them to move the RV out of the front yard. We can't tell them, hey, by the way, are you not feeling well? Because I'll have my kid come over and mow the lawn because I know that you're not feeling well. Oh, you've gone through a death in your family? Let me help. That's why the HOA is there now, because we can't talk to our neighbors. So before you go to the HOA and you complain about your neighbor's weeds in the front yard, go over and knock on the door and find out what they're doing. Is there something I can help with? Off my soapbox. All right. So sit down with your DCCNRs, read through them, see what that actually entails. Because a lot of people don't realize that amount of money that you're paying to your HOAs, and I'm not here to praise on the HOAs, but that amount that you're paying is for the common lands, it's for the pool that you have in your subdivision, and no matter how much money it sounds like it is, it's not. And if you don't have somebody on your HOA that's really a monitor of your treasury, you can get into some real big issues because it is a nonprofit, so they are not supposed to have any money left over at the end of the year. You're supposed to start fresh every year. So with that being said, you also need to know what your architectural committee is doing. Your architectural committee is a wonderful organization of other homeowners in the area that don't want to look at that shed that you've now put in your backyard that is put together with duct tape. Okay? If I can see it from the front yard and my neighbors can see it from their 2-story house, guess what? The architectural committee has a right to say, no, you can't have that. Okay? It's all about what is perceived around you. If they cannot see it in your backyard, like my canoe, okay, then they don't have any right to come into my backyard. But that 6-foot fence is only so high. So if you put a shed back there and that is not a tough shed or something that was approved, then you may have to remove it. Okay, they do have that right. Because the HOA is there to keep your property values up as well as all of your neighbors. That's what they're there for. It's not because they want to be mean or come out with a ruler and tell you that your grass is too long or you don't have the right to have that. It's because they want to make sure the property values are kept up in the subdivisions. Landscaping standards, they will tell you that you can't put something in your front yard, or you can't have a flower bed that's bigger than 4 by 6. Fight it. Fight it. All right. So the things to look for in your DCCNRs are the landscaping, and there's a very easy way to do this. You can go and highlight everything that's your DCCNRs, copy it, put it into ChatGPT, and tell her that you are looking for landscaping, ground cover, turf, maintenance, appearance, and approval requirements. And guess what ChatGPT will do for you? She will read it, and she will give you those exact locations of where those are and your DCCNRs. Okay? But it will be very vague, because that's how that works. The DCCNRs are very vague to give you the impression that you have to keep the turf in your yard that they put there, and that you have to keep the landscaping that they put in your front yard. You have to follow those rules. And I am not a bad rule follower, but I tend to push the envelope a little bit. Okay? So, you can do these things, but I will be very vague, and you'll have to go ahead and put that in and evaluate what it actually says. And once you find those things that are going to come up in chat or in any other chat-like system that you use, have her break it down again. What does this mean? How much can I get away with? What do I have to have actually approved by the architectural committee, or can I just go ahead and finagle? Okay, how much approval do I need? Yes, sir.
Question, that architectural committee, what does that consist of?
Usually about 5 people that sit there and say, they look at the DCCNRs and break it down. So if I were going to do a xeriscape in my front yard, and both of my neighbors have their lawns that they, God bless both of these men on both sides of me, they mow their lawn once a week. And they don't really necessarily want my xeriscaping in the front yard.
Can they tell you what flowers to put in there?
No. They can do recommendations, and some, we were talking about it earlier, they have a list that you can use, but that's where you come to the table with answers. So if they wanted to go ahead and you say, they say, well, you can put this flower in or this flower in, you can come back and say, well, you know what, I really like the blue salvia or the blue mealy. I really would rather have that. And then tell them the benefits of doing that, which is a lower water, da 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 da. You give them all the reasons why you want what you want. They won't fight you on it. Because you're coming to the table with what? Answers, right? What is DCC, Bob? Okay, got it.
That's okay.
I can't remember.
I'm good. I can look it up. That's fine.
They're basically the rules and regulations of the HOA.
Thank you.
Yeah, they've got acronyms, wonderful things. So when your rules, in your rules, okay, are very vague, neat appearance. Any clues? What's neat to me might not be neat to Pam. Okay? I like the Monet, she does not. All right? Proper maintenance. What's proper maintenance for you might not be proper maintenance for me. Proper maintenance for me is having somebody come and cut my lawn every other week. Proper maintenance for somebody else is maybe because of the grass that they put in, buffalo grass, it's once every 6 weeks. Okay? But again, coming to the table with answers and telling them, this is the grass that I put in because it's low water maintenance. I don't water my grass or I don't cut my grass because it will ruin the grass that I've planted. See where that comes in? So proper maintenance, very vague. Compatible landscaping. What is compatible? Does that mean I like it? It's compatible with me. May not be compatible with Paul, but I don't care about Paul. It's compatible with me. Okay? So, I know. So very often in your rules of your HOA, these will be left for interpretation. So again, coming to the table with answers is going to go ahead and it's going to give you that ability to battle this. Okay? You've got to be a little bit wiser than that board member on the other end. All right. So, secret weapons, cues for care. So, define your edges, mulch, pathways, repetition, border, and signage. I can't tell you how important this is. When I was planting my hell strip, the first thing that I did, every single plant that I bought at HEB that was on the native plant rack, I came home with that little tag, and guess what? It is planted right next to that plant. The best feedback I got on that was I was out, and I noticed that this family stopped by my health strip. And it was a little boy that was about 5, and their new baby, and the mom and dad. And I said, you're looking at my native plant garden. I'm so excited. And the little boy looks at me and he goes, I get to see bumblebees. Broke my heart. I was like, oh. But that is the best feedback that you can get. And I've had more neighbors come up to me and say, it's so cool to see this blooming, and I know what it is. So get yourself some little of those copper tags, label them, and every time you plant anything in your yard, pop it in there to be successful. You now have a purpose, right? Your plant now has a purpose. It's letting people know what is blooming in the dead of summer when they know you're not watering. They now too can go to the nursery and get yourself some Blackfoot daisy, or get yourself a Zexmania, or get yourself a blue mealy sage. And this is my first season with this hell strip. And if anybody knows native plants, first year is just establishing, second year is a little bit of a creep, and the third year is when they leap and they get crazy. So just imagine as this progresses each season, I'm going to have the ability to share what native plants can do. So define your edges. Put yourself a border around whatever pollinating garden you want to put in there. Put in your seeds and let it go crazy, but keep up that edge. So whether you use granite or you use mulch to edge your property of where you want to put this garden in, you've got an edge. You've given them their flower bed. What you put in your flower bed is your business, but you've edged it to make it appropriate for the HOA, right? Put yourself in pathways also. Use the granite. The granite is amazing because what grows in granite? We know what comes up in March and April? Bluebonnets. Okay? So if you put yourself a pathway in of granite, and then in the fall you sprinkle it with only bluebonnet seeds, you're going to have this beautiful border of bluebonnets if everything goes well. All right? So keep in mind to battle the HOA is to work with them and to be living by example. Make it move forward. So make a plan. Sit down and do a plan on paper of what you want your front yard to look like. Just like we went ahead and we visualized it at the very beginning, we went ahead and saw what that all looked like in our head, the perfect front yard. Visualize it on paper. Do it on paper. Where is your sun? Where is your shade? You're going to put turk caps in the shade. You're going to go ahead and you're going to put your Blackfoot daisies in the sun, right? Where the birds and butterflies meet. Do you want them in your front yard? It's kind of fun. All of a sudden we have birds and butterflies and all kinds of good things. And then how big of a hole do you want to dig? That becomes very important when you're planting a tree, right? When you plant a tree, you got to think double to whatever that container is. So with any plants that you put in, you just got to be patient. Don't go out there and think you're going to get 2 or 3 gallons because you want the instant gratification of having this big plant there. Patience. I think if nothing else gardening has taught me is patience. Let it grow into itself. It's going to be much more successful to do it that way than to go ahead and plant something that's big and then it dies and then you've got to fill that hole again, right? So you go out, you spend $60 on a tree that's only about 3 feet high, 4 feet high, and you plant it and then it doesn't do well. Whereas if you start with a smaller one and grow into it, you can actually nurture that baby all the way through. So we do it with our gardens, right? We kind of got a plan of where we're going to plant our vegetables on a regular basis. Do it with your yard too. Sit down, it's really fun. I know it doesn't sound like it, but it is. It's really fun. Where you get your house plan, a virtual house plan, and what do you want the front yard? And see, there's grass. We got a little bit of grass in there. We're okay with it. But keeping in mind that you don't have to, you can overbear all of this good stuff. There's hardscapes in there, you've got your patio, you've got a little bit of bushy here, and you got flowers, and you can go through and actually analyze, and it doesn't all need to be done today. Slow and steady. You go to HEB, you pick up your groceries, and what do? We pick up 1 or 2 of the native plants. And then we already have a place in our mind where those are going to go, and we come home and we plant those little 6-inch pots, and we're so happy that we're just watering those 2 little 6-inch pots. So as you can see, this is just kind of showing you some basics of how you can make this plan work. You can always use recycled items. Go, the cat. You can use recycled items. You can go to the restore and pick up bricks that they may have. I've gone and gotten bathroom tiles and used them as walkways. You have the ability to do that. And I'm sure there are people out there that are getting rid of stuff in their yard all the time that you can do. I also stopped and I picked up from my borders. I've stopped and picked up fence posting, the cedar fence posting, and I just lay them down wherever I want. And that gives me a good border, and it also keeps creatures away sometimes. Keeps some of the bugs away. So just kind of keep those in mind. This just gives you a few of the easy peasy plants that you can plant. These are the easy ones. These are the ones that don't need a lot of love and attention. As a matter of fact, they love you to neglect them. And they're great butterfly collectors. I just bought a Texas red oak that I've got to plant, but I keep putting it off because it's the pot size that I know I have to dig in my yard to make that happen. So keep in mind when you're buying the trees that you've got to make those renditions. So again, coming to the table with answers, this gives you a little bit more about how to put your border plants in, know what the plant is going to do before you put it in. Because these black-eyed Susans, I will tell you they only get about 2 feet tall. Mine are about right here right now. Because they will search for the sun. They will look. You put in Maximilians. How many of you have Maximilians in your yard right now? Aren't they beautiful? Maximilians are the beautiful sunflowers that you'll see out in the very, very far end of the prairie that look absolutely gorgeous. They will follow the sun. They will take that morning sun, and their little faces follow it all the way through. But they are big and they are crazy. They're just absolutely insane. But they're the most beautiful flower. But if you don't have them in your yard and you put them in, you can't put them in the front. Okay? They need to be in the back where everybody needs to be. All the tall people in the back, that's where the Maximilians need to go. So just kind of keep that in mind. Pay attention to what the plant does and where it goes and how that all looks. So here is an easy way to get away with your pollinating garden once you put a border on it. Make yourself a cute little DIY. All right? Pollinating garden. Karen's pollinating crazy. Okay? By putting in a simple sign like that shows that you have intention for what you're putting in. You got your border around it, you got your flower bed. You put in whatever you want to put in, and now you have purpose. All right? So live by example. Put your signs, put your signs up. Sorry, jumped. Okay, now here's the fun part. So, you have this wonderful pollinating garden that you put in. I'm going to try to wrap this up as much as I can fast. You've got your pollinating garden, you've got your border. Your border is a mulch border. Okay? So in comes the fall. You've had a beautiful summer. You've had flowers from April until now it's October. The butterflies, the bees, everybody's come by. And now you're going, okay, it's fall. It's planting season. What am I going to do now? So guess what? You have a rake. The rake takes that little bit of mulch and moves it another 2 feet. You're moving into your grass. So move your garden out another 2 feet. You're not doing anything but extending your flower bed, ladies and gentlemen, by just about 2 feet. And you still have your mulch border, right? And you plant in what you want to do because fall is for planting. You make it all pretty, and in the middle of the night, nobody knows that you've extended your garden another 2 feet. Didn't hear it from me. Slowly but surely, you move that garden out to where you want it to go, and it's not the 4x10 bed anymore. Now it is the 6x14. And you've gotten rid of some of your grass. So you've got to pay attention to where your sprinklers are, right? Because you're moving into your grass location. So just kind of pay attention to that. But your border hasn't really changed. It's kind of moving right along. Okay? You can do it with rocks as well. So if you have your rocks, you just lift your rocks and you move them over. You put your, you want to make sure that you're going to get rid of your grass, so you're going to solarize it to a certain extent. The only thing you need to do, really, is take some cardboard and lay it on the new portion and put your mulch over it. So you're not necessarily planting right away, but that area will then kill the grass that's underneath it. And then when it comes time for planting, you'll be ready because you can dig right through that cardboard. Okay? Just trying to tell you that you don't need to fight with the HOA on it, you just need to be creative. All right? So start small. Anytime that you're going to be building a garden area that is not going to be within the quote-unquote HOA standards, you're going to have some resistance because they don't understand. When you tell them native plants, they're thinking the native plants of all the weeds and the dandelions and everything else that's going in out there. If you do it with intention, come to the table with answers, and live by example, it's going to make it a lot easier. So starting small, your little mailbox area that's there. If you have a mailbox in front of your house, even if it's just a little planted area, start there. Get a couple of plants from HEB, put them in, let them do their thing. Foundation beds, tree rings. I can't tell you how easy it is to put a tree ring up. Now, keep in mind you're looking at understory, so pay attention to what plants you put in. As you drive down River Road and you see all the understory, that's what's going to be in your tree ring. Side yards, parkways, hell strips. Increase your maybe 3 feet, maybe 2 feet.
That time of leave would be 6 feet.
You got it, but you got to, you can do it. It's just going to take a little bit more time.
Right.
Unless you want to go through the ACC, which is your agricultural committee or your architectural committee. You can go in with a big plan for the architectural committee.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because we had a neighbor of ours, he lives at the end of our street, spent $30,000 putting in a brand new front and back lawn. And the HOA come down and told him he couldn't have buffalo grass. And the majority of his design was around buffalo grass.
That's because they didn't pay attention.
Yeah.
And that's the sad and unfortunate truth is a lot of the people don't understand what they're doing. And so, and then to have to go through the hassle of dealing with them to keep what you put in because you spent so much money on it.
Right.
So going to the table with answers first, telling them why you're doing it, what you're doing, and being upfront about it before doing it. Because he could have done the buffalo grass, which is great, he puts it in his yard, but he also could have done native plants the same way. And they probably would have balked at it because all of a sudden he has no lawn, he has only plants in the front yard.
Yeah.
So you have to be strategic about it too. He would have been better off to put in a small area of it and kind of increase it the other way.
Right.
If he wanted to do it. But hindsight's always 20/20, unfortunately. Yes, sir.
You're saying something I keep thinking about in where I live. I think a lot of people in our neighborhood have never been in an HOA. And so when they're all excited about signing their papers, that's the last thing they care about.
Yep.
Because, and they really don't know. There was something in What's Up Seguin this past week about somebody said, I'm moving there, should I live in an HOA or not? And the responses were really kind of awful about, there's nothing good about an HOA. It's the government telling you what to do.
And it's not.
Well,
That's the sad and
they've
unfortunate.
elected their neighbors to make decisions for them. It's not the government.
Yeah.
But they don't understand. And again, I think we as a kind of organization that we are, is that someone needs to do a better job explaining HOAs before it's a purchase. Maybe the bank or the mortgage company should do that. Because if you don't want someone telling you can't park 3 trucks in your driveway or on your street, then don't move there.
Yeah.
But they don't understand there's going to be consequences, and then it's like, now you're telling me what I can't do.
True.
And ours is as bad. Ours is fairly young. But I asked them, why aren't you telling the people some of these important things, and now you're going to fine over? Because some of them are renters. Some of them never have been in an HOA, but you're going to fine them. But you've never gone out and done an extra step to explain why you should or shouldn't do something. They do nothing until it's a fine.
Yeah. And that's the unfortunate thing about HOAs. We were in, when I was growing up in the 70s in LA, we had an HOA, but we didn't know we were an HOA. I mean, because, neighbors checked on each other and neighbors kind of knew what was going on. And we actually communicated and had the bread man come and the milkman come. Yes, I wasn't that old. But nobody realized that the HOA, the only reason that they did that was because people weren't talking to each other anymore. And it's really, really sad. But they also don't realize that the HOA does a lot of things that are really good for the neighborhood too.
Well, who's going to mow those common areas if it's not the HOA?
True.
The residents aren't going to mow the park.
And the residents will not fund up the money to make that happen, even if it's decided amongst all of the neighbors.
What's wrong with Buffalo Grass?
So, yeah.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah, you don't mow buffalo grass as often, and so it ends up being longer than.
It looks pretty.
It is, it's beautiful.
So, okay, so real quick, I've got just a couple minutes to go yet. Build partnerships with your HOA. When you're doing something to your house, just consider the front yard you have to have approved. Okay? The backyard, unless it's some hard structural fixture, typically you don't, unless it's being seen by your neighbors. Okay? So keep in mind, I have two stories on both sides of mine. So I have to pay attention to what I put in my backyard. If I put a patio cover, I have to have it approved by the HOA because I've got neighbors around me that can see it. So I can't use duct tape to make it happen. Yes, sir?
That's not necessarily true. If you go, if you have a neighbor that has the same situation and they have one,
Yeah.
and they never went through the HOA, you don't need to go through the HOA. Because I had the same problem with putting a shed in my backyard.
Yeah.
The architecture would never answer me. I went to the constable and he said, is there any more of those just like what you want to put in your neighborhood? And I said, yes. He said, no problem, put it in.
Yeah. The only thing you have to be aware of, there might be a battle that you have to fight down the road. If you go ahead and you put in a shed or you put in a patio, you just got to be ready to, hey, I tried to contact you, couldn't get a hold of you, you didn't answer me back, here's why I did what I did. I can't wait with the bidding on it.
And I had a question. You talked about percentage of yard. Is that the percentage of the front yard or is that the percentage of the whole property yard?
That all depends on your rules of the HOA. You have to look at what they say in there. All right. So by creating less lawn, you create more life. We talked a little bit about that. No more mowing, no more Watering, you're actually creating yourself to have a little bit better life and transformation in that. And we covered a lot, and I know that HOAs are amazing if they're done correctly. Yes, they are there. No, it's not the government telling you what to do. It is just trying to maintain your property values. That's what they're for. Because you have neighbors that don't respect their property as much as you respect yours. And that's the only reason they do it. We have, in my subdivision, I happen to have a lot of renters also, property owners that have never seen the property that they own, and they have these leasing companies that try to maintain it or don't maintain it. And so we've got a lot of battles on that. Yes, there are fines involved, but I will tell you this about your HOA. One thing is, they will let you know at least for 6 months before a fine hits you. Because there's all kinds of legal obligations to send this notification out. Making sure that this notification hits your email, this notification hits your mailbox, this notification is a second notification, then they have to send you a third notification, and they can't be all done within 2 weeks of each other, and it's a big chaos thing. So by the time a fine reaches you, or reaches anybody in your subdivision, it's 6 months down the road. And then it's a whole thing. But the other thing about the HOAs, keep in mind, the only thing that they can really fine you for is not paying your association dues.
I was just going to ask if anybody ever really paid the fines.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and they've gone into foreclosure. We've had people in our subdivision that have gone into foreclosure over $4,000 or $5,000, which started at $35. So, yeah,
They'll catch
so
up when the next sale happens too.
Yeah.
They can't sell the
they
property
can't sell the property.
until they clear all the debt. So
Yeah.
if you want to sell it, you got to pay up.
So at the bottom of this, there is some resources for native plants if you want them. They're there. I will suggest, Lady Bird Johnson's on there. Lady Bird Johnson, go out once a quarter and see what's blooming. Take a Sunday afternoon, go out there and walk the gardens to see what's blooming. And then if you like something that you want in your yard, you know what it looks like. I can't tell you how important it is once a quarter, because then you're going to see winter, spring, summer, and fall. And you can have flowers all year long by that rotation. All right, we went through questions. So this is really big for me. So thank you for listening to me about HOAs and how to work with them. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate. Getting our lawns to be a little more on my beautiful side rather than on the HOA beautiful side is kind of where I'm shooting for, and the more knowledge I can give to you, and you go out and you spread the word by living by example, is huge. So thank you, everybody. Questions? Okay.
Whenever you're showing the beds, can it spill over the beds? Like, is there a problem if it's having it like?
As long as you have a border.
So if you have
So
a
you
border,
have a
it's
border
okay
and it's
now?
going over, like it's a creeping something, yes.
Okay.
But it still needs to be purposeful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's just if you're gonna plant something like that.
So the primrose will come out, the pink primrose will come out and go over in the springtime. But as long as you have this border there that shows purpose of where it's supposed to be, that's important.